Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Welcome to episode number 79 of Showing Up, Perspectives on Cancer. Hello, Erica Campbell, over there.
Hello, Tim. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Excited for another show. How are you?
I have never been better. I'm excited for today's show, and I also have a vacation coming up in 2 weeks, so I'm also excited about that.
I bet you're excited. I can tell because you just said that. So that's how I could tell. So welcome and thank you everyone for showing up. This show was created as a safe space where cancer patients, survivors, and supporters come together to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources that provide healing, hope, and resilience. And that's a really long sentence. I don't know why I made it that long, but I did. And my name's Tim Sode. I'm a 16-year cancer warrior, host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, author of Perspectives on Cancer, Cancer Patients, Survivors, and Supporters Share Their Stories, and founder of Social Media Solutions. Another long. Why do I create things that are so long? I'm not sure why I do that, Erica, but here's to showing up.
That's the most important part, Tim, is just showing up.
That's
so
it.
Today I'm showing up, and I am Erica Newbert Campbell. I myself am a 5-year breast cancer survivor. I am also the leader of a nonprofit organization called the Pinky Swear Foundation, which helps kids with cancer and their families. I am also a longtime volunteer as a summer camp counselor for children with cancer, and I call myself a cancer orphan after losing my mother to breast cancer over 20 years ago. Thank you, Tim. And I'm excited because, Tim, we have the best community on LinkedIn. They are the most loyal, supportive, and connected. So what's most important to Tim and I is not only showing up, but creating community. So let us know in the chat, get on your fingertips, and let us know where are you tuning in from and what is your connection to cancer. My extra special challenge is say hello to somebody else that you see in the chat. Maybe it's someone you know, and if not, make it someone that you will get to know, and just say hello, take that risk, and build that community.
Yes, definitely do that. And we are excited to bring on our guest very shortly. But before we do that, we just want to remind everybody that the in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event is coming up on September 30th and October 1st near Scranton, Pennsylvania. And it's an event for cancer patients, survivors, and supporters to come together, share their stories, be inspired, feel supported, and learn too. And you can find out more information and register at perspectivesoncancer.com. And Erica, you know what? I decided what I'm going to do at this event. Do you know what I'm going to do?
Tell us more, Tim.
So I'm going to share my perspective because I have a new perspective this year with my cancer coming back.
Yep.
And that's kind of heavy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but then we're going to have fun and we're going to play games. So we're going to talk perspectives, but then we're going to have fun. So we're going to mix it up a little bit.
Absolutely. It's like turning lemons into lemonade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Ooh, yeah. I love games. We're going to have to unpack that more because I love all sorts of board games. I'm not very competitive though, but I love playing.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. So hope to see y'all there. Erica, over to you. Who is our guest for today?
Oh, you are going to love this one. So our guest is originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and he's worked in broadcast journalism in one way or the other since 1974. So we have a legend on our hands. The highlight of his career was being a reporter and producer for ABC Sports Radio in New York from 1984 to 2001. In December of 2000, our guest, Bruce Morton, was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the very young age of 47. And the following February, he underwent brachytherapy. I'm sure I butchered that word, which is more commonly known as the seeds. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. He's been cancer-free ever since, but he's turned his diagnosis into a mission. Let's welcome Bruce to the show.
Welcome, Bruce.
Welcome and good afternoon. It's great to be here with you guys.
Oh, Bruce, it's so good to hear your voice because you do have this like radio voice. It's very soothing, very rich in tone, and I can see why you're so successful in radio and TV.
Well, I'm still doing it a little bit, but I've tapered off a bit. I've entered into the blissful world of semi-retirement. So I'm still doing it, and there are some days in which I'm not doing anything at all, and that is nothing less than bliss.
Oh, that sounds so dreamy.
Well, we're excited to have you here, Bruce, and we're also excited to have everybody here that's showing up here viewing the show. So we want to shout out everyone who's here live or on the replay if you're a future viewer as well. So Mark Kageyama is here. He's here somewhere, and thank you for being here, Mark. He said he did a video with you.
I know. So this is a shameless plug. Mark and I did an interview for his show, To Be Your Own Hero. The link is right there. It's on YouTube, and it was a really moving conversation. I'm honored to be on Mark's show, and so please watch. Thank you so much, Mark. Welcome.
That's awesome. And Bill Bradford is here. Welcome, Bill. It's great to see you here.
Hi, Bill.
And Mary is here.
Hi,
Welcome, Mary. And thank you all for showing up. We really, really appreciate you showing up for sure. So we're excited to get this conversation started for sure. So Bruce, how did you first get into the podcast and interview business anyway?
Well, if you're talking about the podcast that I'm doing now, it's called Cancer Interviews. And it is the brainchild of my best friend here in Denver, a fellow named Jim Foster, who is a 2-time Hodgkin lymphoma survivor. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a survivor of prostate cancer, but I assure you, my cancer journey was not 1/100th as arduous as his was. He twice came within an inch of his life, and he survived. He's still with us, I'm very happy to say. And by virtue of his experience, Jim looked back, took stock of everything. He thought about the great support that he got from his wife, from family and friends, from his care team. And he thought that he wanted to do something to give back. And that is where the whole concept of Cancer Interviews was born. It's a website and a podcast in which we do long form interviews with no time constraints, with folks mostly who are survivors, but we have a few caregivers involved, a few advocates, a few authors. Every once in a while, we veer off course and do something a little bit different. But for the most part, it is with people who have survived cancer, and we give them a chance to tell their story without time constraints.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about that. I guess, how many episodes have you done, and what is the format? Tell us more. I'm really intrigued by cancerinterviews.com. It is what it is.
Well, our interviews are done via Zoom. It's just 2 people talking on a Zoom call. And our interviews, they generally run around the area of half an hour, but sometimes they go longer. If they need to go longer, they go longer. We certainly don't want to step in anybody's way if they want to tell their whole story. But I think our primary reason for being is that if somebody is diagnosed with cancer, or they think they might be diagnosed with cancer, there are numerous places they can go on the internet to get medical advice. What we try to do, the space we try to fill, is that we present cancer survivors, lay people talking to a lay audience in lay, easy to understand terms, which we hope will be easy to relate to for the viewers / listeners, as we do go up in podcast form as well. And we hope that people in this profile will want to hear these interviews, and they hopefully can find them very easy to relate to.
Wow. That is incredible. So before we go to my next official question, I guess, how does your cancer journey play into this? You talked about your partner Jim's cancer journey. What about yours?
Well, for years, when I was living in New Jersey and working in New York, I would go in for an annual physical like just about anybody else. And part of that physical would involve routine blood work. And I would be done with my physical, and I would jokingly tell my father, now my late father, but I would tell my father, I said, well, Dad, I'm not a candidate for prostate cancer. And then came the summer of 2000, in which my blood work came back, and it had one of the indicators of prostate cancer, a number of the prostatic specific antigen, or PSA for short. And my PSA was up around 4, which is a little higher than normal. So that got the attention of my general practitioner. That led to my being referred to an oncologist just across the street. They did a biopsy, and by virtue of that biopsy, that's when I learned that I had prostate cancer.
Wow. And so give us a little bit more. Then what?
Well, this particular doctor not only told me I had prostate cancer, but he thought that I should have my prostate taken out. And anyway, when I got that news, right there in the doctor's office, tears were rolling down my face. The doctor's office was only about a half-mile walk from my home, and I recall walking back home, and it's broad daylight, and I'm just crying my eyes out right there on the street. I couldn't believe what I heard. And I ended up calling a coworker of mine who was based in Florida. I told him about this, and then he suggested that I contact my former boss. I had this boss who hired me for this great job at ABC, but there were many times in which he made my life very difficult. And this guy knew that had taken place, but he still suggested that I should call my old boss, which I did. And I told him about this, and then he thought, and he's certainly no doctor, but he thought it was ridiculous that at my relatively young age, and I was in pretty good health, he thought it was ridiculous that a doctor should suggest to me that I should have my prostate removed. And so he said, here's what you're going to do. He said, he immediately assumed the role of my boss, even though he was no longer my boss. So he said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be seen by some real doctors. I want you to go to Sloan Kettering, which is an elite cancer hospital in New York. And he said, then I want you to go to Johns Hopkins, which is also an elite cancer hospital in Baltimore. He said, no, because I had been working in New York for 17 years, he said, you know how to get to Sloan Kettering. But if you don't know your way around Baltimore, I will drive you down there myself. I was blown away by this person who so many times had made my life miserable when I was his employee. But it made an impression on me, and I went into Sloan Kettering on Martin Luther King Day 2001, and I was seen by not one but 2 doctors there. So I got a second and a third opinion, 2 for the price of 1, and they both said, after checking me out and checking all these variables that led to this complex equation, and they said, you're a perfect candidate for the seeds. You don't have to get your prostate taken out. And then I contacted a radio friend of mine in New York who incredibly was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He and I are approximately the same age. He was diagnosed 6 months before me. And I contacted him, and he gave me the name of these 2 doctors at another hospital in New York, St. Luke's Roosevelt. And I went to see a urologist and a radiation oncologist, and they told me the same thing. So now I had a 4th and a 5th opinion. And they all said, you don't need to have your prostate taken out. The seeds will get the job done. And so after I heard all that, I was convinced. And in February of 2001, I went into St. Luke's, and I had the procedure. So here I was in an operating room, and maybe the OR team thought that it needed to say or do something to loosen me up. Instead, I was telling them jokes. I had them laughing. And the the anesthesiologist was this Polish guy with a Polish accent, and he's getting his hypodermic needle ready to go, and he said to the rest of the OR team, he said, "I like this one. He has spirit for now." And then I went under, and hours later I came back up, and the procedure was done. I still had some paralysis, which is par for the course with a general anesthetic, and I left that night on an outpatient basis. A coworker of mine took me home and stayed with me just in case something happened. He drove me back into the city the next day, and I went back to St. Luke's, and I forgot to mention that while I was under, they put a catheter in me, and so the nurse removed the catheter. And I cannot believe there are people who go through this every day. I cannot believe that, because this happened just once with me, and there was this lightning bolt of pain when it came out, but it only lasted like a fraction of a second. So the next important step in this journey was that I had to learn if I was incontinent or if I was still continent. So I guess that's the opposite of being incontinent. And so the nurse led me over to the water cooler and said, just keep drinking till you're ready to go to the bathroom. The men's room is the third door down on the right. And I about half an hour later, I said to the nurse, "Okay, I'm ready." And that this was a very pivotal moment. And she said, "Good luck." And I went down there, and I didn't know how else to say it. I was able to, quote unquote, hold it. And that was huge. That was huge, because at that time I still had a job that was very public. I went to ball games, news conferences, it's stuff like that. I would be on crowded subway cars or crowded commuter buses and stuff like that. And I was terrified at the thought of being incontinent in that environment. And very thankfully, I wasn't. And from that point, my PSA was monitored. I went in to be checked out by a doctor once every 3 months, and then at about the 18-month mark, my PSA went up, and that was frightening, because I thought maybe something about this procedure didn't work. And then the oncologist that I had in Denver, I was splitting my doctor visits between the New York guys and a Denver urologist. And he said, no, that's par for the course with this procedure. It'll go up, and just be patient. It'll come back down. And anything that I could give you for this would do more harm than good. So all you can do is be patient. And so I had no choice. I was patient. And the next time I went in at the next 3-month increment, it had the PSA had inched down, not the precipitous drop that I wanted, but it came back down. The one after that, then there was a bigger drop and a bigger drop. And for as many years as I can remember now, my PSA has been less than 1/10 of 1%. Wow. Or 1/10 of 1.
Well, that's progress for sure. Congratulations, wow. Bruce. I mean,
thank you. I'm thankful for it every day.
Well, Bruce, coming back to your show, given that all you've shared with us between your journey, Jim's journey, and the show itself, what is the goal of your show?
I would say there are 2 operative words that go with our interviews, because they are stories of survivorship. We want our interviews to be informative, especially for the people watching and listening who have the same type of cancer as the interviewee.
Yeah.
But for anybody who's been diagnosed with cancer, we want these stories to be inspirational. So informative and inspirational, those are the 2 things we shoot for. And whether we get them, you'd have to talk to the listener/viewer, but that's certainly what we try to do. And I can tell you, as one who's been on the receiving end of these answers to my questions, I can tell you that each time I do an interview, it's inspirational and it's informative. Some people are better talkers than others, some more eloquent than others, but everybody has a story to tell that is worth hearing for anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer or think they might be. I found myself, I was in a twixt and tween zone between when my PSA test came in high and when I was actually diagnosed. That was about a 3-month interim period. So it's for anybody in that interim period, anybody who's been diagnosed and or a loved one of any of the above.
Yeah. And, I like that you said that it's about inspiration too. I think that's, Tim and I often talked about that.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I was really excited to have you on, Bruce, today because it's really cool to be able to talk to someone who also has conversations with people about their cancer journeys, because it's not often that we get to talk to other people that do that.
Yeah.
Certainly. And, this isn't a competition, but
no, not at all. Not at all.
No, I don't mean with you, but I mean with the guests, 90 something percent of the guests, 98% of the guests have been through cancer journeys that are far more tumultuous than mine.
Yeah.
But anybody who's been on a journey that has in which the roads have led to survivorship, that's a story worth retelling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So everybody, we're here on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Our guest is Bruce Morton. So Bruce, I'm curious, what is the biggest gift that you have gotten from creating these interviews?
I would say that I'll have to circle back to one of my operative words, and that would be inspiration, because I look at what so many of these people have gone through. They've been tested mentally, emotionally, physically, to a much greater degree than myself, and they've come out, virtually all of them, in a very good place. That is its own inspiration. That's the gift that I get from doing these interviews. It is a labor of love. It really is.
And also, Bruce, I'm curious, have any of the interviews you've ever done, have they ever had maybe like a more challenging impact for you? Have they ever like maybe taken them back in your journey to a place that was maybe more dark or more heavy for you?
Well, one of the questions we ask, and we have sort of a format, like you guys have a format. So we have a standard sort of template of questions that we have, but with follow-up questions, and because each guest is different, each interview is different. But I would say that, and this is a question that has to be worded carefully, because if it isn't, then it can sound kind of tacky. But one of the things that we ask is, it's quite obvious that it was very bad news that you got when you were presented with your diagnosis, but how did you handle it? And once I ask that, then suddenly I find myself, if only for a minute, if only for a few seconds, I find myself in that same place when I think back to the news that I got in the office, that tears going down my face. Then suddenly I'm identifying with those people, because we've both been at that same juncture. Now, for many people, again, their journey presented far greater hurdles than mine did, but we both share that moment when we got that news, when we received that news.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely one piece of the journey that we all share as cancer survivors. Yeah.
So Bruce, you've done lots of interviews, and just like Tim and I, you've heard lots of cancer stories. What's been your most favorite story that you've heard, or perhaps the most interesting, or one that's impacted you the most?
Well, I'm not sure if favorite is the operative word here, but the favorite part of this is that the guest overcame everything that I'm about to share with you. And the chain of events that led to that is not heartwarming by any stretch. It's rather daunting. But the fact that she overcame this, I guess that would make it my favorite interview. But every type of cancer tugs at my heartstrings. But there are two cancers that really, really tug at my heartstrings, perhaps more than the others. And I don't mean to trivialize all the others, but the two cancers that really tug at my heartstrings in no particular order between these two are pancreatic cancer and lung cancer. The reason for that is with various other types of cancer, if you catch it early enough, if there's early detection, that greatly increases the possibility of a good outcome. But with pancreatic cancer and lung cancer, it happens so often that the variables are such that it makes it really hard for early detection to be a reality.
Yeah.
And so when people are diagnosed, many times when they're diagnosed, it's almost too late. And to get to a specific answer to your question, there was a lung cancer patient who was screaming for a lung cancer screening to find out if she had lung cancer. And there are some advances that are being made within the lung cancer space that are making early detection a bit easier than it used to be. But in her case, she wanted to again and again and again get a lung cancer screening, and she couldn't get one. And then the story is about to take a turn for the worse. She had a physically abusive husband, and they got into an argument, and part of that argument was that he just picked her up like a rag doll and threw her against the family car, and she broke her hip. She was taken to the hospital, and she went through a series of exams related to the hip. And somehow through those exams, they thought, they found out, by the way, you have lung cancer. She had stage 4 metastatic lung cancer. So she had all the events from this bad marriage. She had a broken hip. Then she found out she had metastatic stage 4 lung cancer, and she's overcome all of this. And she is now in a marriage to a high school sweetheart, and so many things. Her hip is better now. All these terrible things have taken a turnaround for the better. So the fact that she overcame all these things, I would guess all those things would make that my favorite interview.
Wow. Jeez, that's a lot to overcome.
Sure is.
Yeah. It's really impressive. And I think that's really empathetic of you, Bruce. I have heard stories of both pancreatic and lung cancer. They're very hard to detect and can be so deadly because it gets caught so late. So it's never a good cancer. Tim and I have had those conversations before.
Exactly.
Yeah, but those ones are particularly cruel.
Yes, and I'm no doctor, but what I've been able to learn from people who know a lot more about this than I is that there are some advances being made, and this sort of situation incrementally is getting better, and the chances for early detection in pancreatic cancer and lung cancer are getting better, and that'll lead to better outcomes.
Yeah. Yes, that is great. Yep.
Yes. So, Bruce, what is your advice to those who are sharing their cancer stories for the first time?
I would say, and this is an individual decision for each person, because we reach out to people that we would like to have as guests, and there are some that want their cancer journey to be an invisible, at most a speck on their life's rearview mirror, and there are others who find value in sharing their cancer journey. And for those in the latter category, those who find value, please know that that's exactly what is gained by anybody who hears your story. And the more you tell, the better. Before each interview with a guest, we will, among other things, we'll ask them, is there any part of your cancer journey that is off limits? Any part of the cancer journey that is verboten, you don't want us to talk about? And I'm telling you, 99% of the time people say, no, my cancer journey is an open book. You can ask me about anything. There are certain below the belt cancers that can have some areas that might be kind of difficult to talk about. But in my experience, anybody, even with a below the belt cancer, is happy to talk about their experience because they know that for the viewer/listener, there is value in that information. Again, presented from a lay person to another lay person.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, you often talk about how stories and sharing the story can be such a healing experience. The way it was for you, Tim, when you first told yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience is different for everyone, and where you are in your cancer journey also makes it different. So when I first started sharing my cancer story, I was at a place where I was, I'm trying to remember if I was cancer free or not. I think I was. But now my cancer came back a few months ago. So now I'm at a very different place in terms of what I think also when we share our cancer stories, it's okay to share, like Bruce was saying, you know, he'll ask guests if there's certain pieces they don't want to share. And right now I'm at a place where there are certain pieces I don't want to share. There are a lot of pieces I don't want to share right now, you know? So I think it's important that as cancer patients or cancer survivors, that our journey is evolving. And even if we're cancer free, our story isn't over yet. We're still going through stuff, right? Right, Bruce?
Yes, that's why we use the word survive instead of so and so beat cancer. Well, I don't know about that. We're still surviving. I've been cancer free now 22 years. That doesn't mean something won't change. I certainly hope nothing changes for the worse, but that doesn't rule it out. And I have to be cognizant of that, and you guys do too.
Yeah. And Eric, I'm curious, is there anything that you want to weigh in there as well in terms of you sharing your story? And I know you're going to have your book coming out as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. I feel like, well, Tim, you know, the premise of my book is actually to be quite vulnerable about the journey, and it'll contain a lot of photos and, you know, some intimate moments. But I'm not sure I would have done that during the journey, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Tim, you just said, you know, you're kind of in the middle of some things and you're not so sure what you want to share, what you don't want to share. I was in that place too. And now on the other side, you know, it's, I feel it's important for me to be extra vulnerable and to be extra available to others, to give them permission. And what I mean by permission is permission to feel fear, permission to feel like it's not fair, permission to feel whatever comes up for you, and to then share, now it's okay and you will get to the other side. So I feel pretty passionate these days about being extremely transparent about some of the dark moments I went through, because we all know everybody has them. And to me, that's an important part of my healing, is to, you know, to look back. And what I mean by that is like, okay, I got through the dark tunnel, so I got to turn around and bring someone through the tunnel as well. Because there are so many people, Tim, you say this, and Bruce, I think you say this too. There are so many people that helped you. It's now my job to turn around in the tunnel and be like, okay, here's the light. Come this way. Come with us. I feel a deep responsibility for that.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Bruce, you want to say about that before we move on to our next question?
I don't know what I can say that Erica hasn't already said. She articulated it so well. Anything I would say would just be redundant. I think, Erica, you expressed it well, and I think that there is a responsibility to, in a manner of speaking, pay it forward to others who are just joining a club that nobody wants to be a part of, and so yes, that most definitely is something that we need to do. I've been in that position with others, and I've tried to live up to that myself.
I think you were saying that, Bruce. Tim and I always talk about this. It's like the club, like you just said, it's the club nobody wanted to belong to, but hey, we're all here, so let's make it a party.
Yeah, for sure. Before, Erica, you go to the next question, I just want to bring a few of the comments up. Cara Honorado said, thanks for being here, Cara. She says, so true. When my daughter was sick, there was only one person she could turn to that had blood cancer too, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Bill Tomoff, and actually met Bill the other day at an event I went to in Rockville, Maryland. There was, yes, I met him. I didn't even know he was going to be there. It was this TED Talk that Rachel Druckenmiller gave, among others. And he was like, Tim. And I was like, Bill. He said, bring someone through the tunnel. Our family feels that to the core, Erica.
Yeah. I was going to say, and Bill and his wife, Terry, are, that would say is their life motto, and they inspire me. They are actively supporting others now who are in the childhood cancer journey, and sharing your story about your son, Bill, has always been a gift to so many people. So I want to say thank you.
For sure.
Tim, I can't believe you got to give Bill a real life hug. That's
seriously. I couldn't believe it either. And Diane Jackson is here. She says, hello, folks. So thank you for being here, Diane. She was a previous guest on the show. And yeah, thank you all who are here. Bill Tomoff says, meeting Tim, whoa. Yeah, I had no idea. Rachel Druckenmiller apparently knows Bill. I had no idea that they knew each other.
It's all the community.
Yeah, anyway. Erica, yeah.
Oh, can you pull up Diane's other comment?
Oh, yeah, I didn't see there was another one. Oh, here.
So it says, Erica, I agree entirely with you. Some people will never share. So true, Diane. I like you, I share. Yeah, and that's important, Diane. Bruce, the one thing you mentioned, no matter how long ago we went through this, it is part of us. So, Bruce, that's for you.
Most definitely.
It's so true. Yeah, thanks for saying that, Diane.
Yeah. Erica, do you want to take the next question?
For sure. So Bruce, we always say that, there is the light side to the dark. So what is the silver lining in your journey?
I guess I would just say that that I'm thankful that I came out on the other side of this in a good place, and it has just made me thankfully for each day, present and future, going forward.
Yeah, that's a very common silver lining, is that the ability to be present and to be grateful for what each day brings is a true gift.
Along those lines, Erica, I have a guest coming up on my website podcast in a couple of days who was diagnosed with stage 2 cervical cancer. And at the same time that happened, her pipes burst in her home in Indiana, and she had a dog for years, and the dog died. I'm not a dog owner, but I know many people who are, and the dog is like a member of the family. So for all these 3 things to happen all at once, that was a real haymaker. And yet she comes out of this by addressing her cancer journey and addressing the present and future by looking at things and saying, I get to blankety blank, as opposed to I have to blankety blank. That is part of her story, and I really look forward to hearing more of it when we speak a little bit later this week. But that is sort of a mantra that she uses for everything that she encounters in her life, and she certainly encountered plenty and encountered it all at once. All these 3 things: the diagnosis, her house, she had to move out of her house. Much of her house was mold infested, and then the dog died. All these 3 things happened, and she faced these things by looking at various aspects of her life and saying, I get to blankety blank, as opposed to I have to.
Yeah. Oh, that is, Bruce, we could have a whole other interview on the power of language. And I actually am
Words mean a lot.
Words matter, and changing your language from I have to I get to, I do that all the time. It's actually quite powerful. It feels awkward at first, and then it feels really empowering.
So true. So
Yep.
true.
Yes.
There's some more comments going on here. Something about Mark is asking if my farm animals were with me in DC. I did have my goat. I had Gary the goat with me, and Bruce is probably completely confused at the moment. So Bruce, I have this screaming goat that makes a little screaming goat noise.
It looks like this. This is what.
Yeah,
Tim
Erica has one.
Well, that's what goats do.
Yes.
They aren't soft spoken.
Exactly. So Bruce, this is our final question, and Erica likes to say the hardest question. What is your one-word perspective on cancer?
Resilience.
Ooh.
And that is that it is needed, and each person is different. How they handle it is different, and the quantitatively the challenge is different. But we all need some measure of resilience depending on the situation. And again, I go back to this woman in Indiana who I haven't interviewed yet, but I know a little bit about her. This business of I get to go to the doctor. I get to go buy groceries instead of I have to do that. Because if you get to do it, that means that you're around to do it. And that and this woman's clinging to this notion of I get to, that's part of her resilience.
Mm. Yeah. Cancer, if nothing else, is a exercise in resilience for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tim, what about you?
Oh gosh. So I'm thinking something along the lines of awakening. Like it gives you a new perspective on life. It reawakens you. Like, I know me, especially with my cancer coming back in the last few months, it's like having me reevaluate everything in my life, just like wanting to try new things and just like everything. So yeah, that's my word.
Mm. Tim, that might be the most powerful one you've chosen so far. And you and I have done a year's worth almost of these stories. Awakening. Yeah.
So you've had to come up with the right word 79 times?
Well, Erica started in August of last year, so it's almost the 1 year anniversary of you being here, Erica. So we're gonna have to celebrate in August. We're gonna have to have a party.
August, yeah. And so I will admit, Bruce, that I brought this question to the show because I think it reveals. It's, for me, it's like so juicy. It just reveals, sometimes less is more. What is the one word? Oof, yeah. Well,
I can't scrunch it into one word, but may I share with you the question that I ask at the end of my interviews?
100%, yes.
And that is, we say to the guest, if you encountered somebody who had just been diagnosed with the type of cancer with which you have been diagnosed, and you had a private audience with this person, there might be 10 things you'd want to say to them. But out of those 10 things, what is the one most overarching, most important thing that you would want to make sure to get through to this person? And of course, each person has a different answer, but their answer is it's powerful and it's spontaneous.
All right, can we play that game and do it here?
Certainly.
Tim, do you want to go first or should I?
No.
All right, I'll go first. I'll be brave. I'll go first. Well, I had, as you were framing that question, two things came to mind. So can I cheat and give two?
Certainly.
Okay.
And a lot of our guests do, and then 2 becomes 3 and 3 becomes 4. And that's okay because in this situation, we're talking about information, and the more the merrier. So I'm trying to make it easier on the guest by saying one thing, but there are many instances in which 1 becomes 2 and 2 becomes 3, etc. So the floor is yours, Erica.
All right. Well, I will stick with 2. I could combine them to try and jimmy it into 1. But my first one is, and I literally, to be honest, I actually had a phone call from a friend of mine who got diagnosed with the exact same thing as me this week. So this is a very recent example. And I said to her, it's going to be okay. And, everybody took a collective breath, meaning just the 2 of us, and we sort of sat in that. It's going to be okay. It's going to suck, but it's going to be okay. And then the second thing I told her and myself, which I have to remind myself often, is trust yourself and trust the doctors. And it sounds simple. And I also said, if you don't end up trusting your doctors, change them immediately.
Bingo.
So those are my, I did stick to 2, Bruce. I stuck to 2.
No, that's very good. But if 2 became 22, that's okay too.
Yeah. But it's true and it's real. And I literally had this conversation about 4 days ago. Yeah. So thank you for.
I'm sure whoever heard it is glad they heard it. I'm sure they're glad that they heard it and they heard it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So, Tim, over to you. You look pensive.
Oh, this is a hard one. I don't know why it's so hard. I would say accept help, but also it's okay to let people know that you at moments that you want to be alone, let them know that as well, especially there's, when you're first diagnosed, you might be in shock and you don't want all your extended relatives calling you, and you might not want to call them right back, or if your cancer comes back, or at certain points in your journey, you may not, want to be interacting. So I guess I would say be honest with your feelings with the people that are closest to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm hearing in that, Tim, is telling people when you need help and telling people when you just need to be.
Yes.
And being okay with both of them.
Exactly. What about you, Bruce?
I'm going to do a little cheating of my own and tell you an answer that is a hybrid of Erica's answer and your answer, Tim.
Ooh.
And that is that, yes, it's going to be okay. There may be a bunch of potholes in the road, but the other thing is to advocate for yourself. And advocate for yourself covers a lot of bases. It's not just with your care team. It can be with those closest to you, because family and friends may be well-meaning with all those calls, but they might not come at the right time. We heard from I heard from one patient who had to do advocating by telling the friends not to bring over so much food. They were not calling, but they were knocking on the door with, oh, here's another souffle. But advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to do it. And that we won't make for an easy journey, but it can ease the journey.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And Kara says a million times, yes, advocate. And also, mic drop, Mark says, goats are your friend. So there's that as well.
When has a goat ever done anything to complicate your life?
That's true.
It's true.
That's very true.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to close out, Tim, because I didn't get to answer my 1-word question. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's lame, but it's not going to be as sort of powerful as the awakening, but it's about community. For me, this conversation was about community, about the people that, Bruce, that you are interviewing, Tim, the people that you and I interview, the way we all interact, the fact that, you've met now Bill Tomoff, and I see a lot of fellow authors in your book here. It's, we talk about it's the club that nobody wants to join, but hey, we're all in it. And that community is so supportive. And as I've said, we have the best community on LinkedIn. So my word this week, community.
I love that one. Community.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, Erica, for that. And thank you, Bruce, so much for being on the show. This has been great.
Thank you so much. It was great being on. Great being on with both of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bruce. Many words of wisdom have come from you today. Awesome. Man. Tim, that was a great conversation, and I loved your word today. Awakening. What an awakening from Bruce, awakening from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And thank you all for showing up on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer here. We always love when you show up and when our guests show up. And we are always looking for guests who want to be on the show, survivors, family members, authors, people who are affiliated with cancer nonprofit organizations, medical professionals, anyone with a perspective on cancer. Please send me or Erica a direct message, and we would love to have a conversation with you. Right, Erica?
Absolutely. And come back next week because our guest is Cyan Gates, and she is a cancer supporter. So special shout out to all of the cancer caregivers out there. And as Tim, as I, and anyone who's been on a cancer journey knows, you never go through it alone. So having a cancer supporter there and hearing their perspective is going to be so, so powerful. So please welcome our guest, Cyan Gates, next week. And let's show up and be together in the best community on LinkedIn.
For sure. So see you all next week for another episode of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Erica, it's time to dance. Let's go.
Let's dance and party. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.